Beautiful people, welcome back again to another video. If you are new in this channel, this is Queen Sharon Entertainment, a home of freedom fighters. If you haven't joined our family yet, join us by hitting the red button down below on the bell notification icon. So whenever we have a new video in this same channel, you will get notified. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I love you all. So my people, I have a video here that I want you all to watch, and I myself will be watching with you in this particular video. Feel free to let me know what you think about the video after watching on the comment section below. Like and share this video, and I will see you again in my next one.
All right, let's begin by asking you your take on some of these issues that we have been talking about. We cannot look even at one paper without seeing all of these travails, the issues with IPOB, the sit-at-home order yesterday, the after effects of that, and the fact that, you know, some NECO students missed seating for their mathematics, a course subject, because of the sit-at-home order. Let's begin from there.
But it's quite unfortunate that students who have the opportunity to determine their destiny and career are caught in the midst of the sit-at-home declared by independent peoples of Biafra. But I think that it's a sacrifice that is worth the liberty of the people of the Southeast, because we are united with them in agreement that the marginalization of that sector of the country, it's intolerable, it's unacceptable. If you have visited the Southeast, there's no federal presence there in terms of infrastructure and even companies and government establishments. It's like the civil war is still on. And I don't know how we can sustain that mentality to treat the people as if they are not part of us. And so for me, I think that it's come to a time when the people of the Southeast should determine their fate. The right to self-determination is guaranteed by international law. It's guaranteed under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It is guaranteed under the United Nations Charter, or under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So if a people decide that they don't want to be part of any particular country, they have a right to do so. But having said that, I believe that the agitation for self-determination is occasioned by neglect, it's occasioned by marginalization, it's occasioned by persecution. If you look at the entire Southeast, for instance, in this particular administration, you cannot find any major position from number 1, let's say, to number 4. The president, the vice president, the senate president, the speaker of the House of Representatives, the chief justice of Nigeria, or even in the armed forces. You know, and these are people who contribute immensely towards the economic development of Nigeria. Is the third largest ethnic group in Nigeria. So how do you run a nation like that? And then we're going to 2023, is like there's not even any agreement in terms of power sharing. It's always between the North, Hausa Fulani, and the South, Yoruba-dominated political space. I just think generally it's unacceptable to marginalize a race for so long. So right. I'm in support of the sit-at-home declared by IPOB, but I do not support the areas of violence.
Precisely.
People feel that they do not want to support your struggle. You cannot compel them by violence, or even leading to burning their properties or killing anybody who probably does not support that call. It is self-defeatist for a house to be divided against itself. So in that regard, I think that there was some extremism on the part of IPOB in trying to enforce the sit-at-home through violence and repression. Because what you are suffering in the hands of the Nigerian state, you cannot then impose it on your own people. Otherwise, charity should always begin at home. Thank you.
All right, Abun, thank you. Let's interrogate some of the concerns you've raised. You've identified the fact that, well, self-determination is guaranteed under international protocols. Nigeria is a signatory too. And also the right to civil disobedience is also, you know, allowed in the Nigerian constitution. But the mode and pattern that we are seeing, which is playing out in the South, especially within this group called the IPOB, proscribed as they are you concerned that it's taking extremist dimensions? We've seen pictures, we've seen videos of what happened yesterday. We've seen poor people who are just struggling to survive, who are setting up some backyard restaurants, fixing their meals, and so-called IBO people move in, scatter everything. The livelihood for that day is lost for that poor woman, and several other cases such as that. Is that not assuming the extremist dimension, and how do you think this should be best handled?
Well, if you look at the events in the Southeast geopolitical zone, you will discover that this is the second time in the series of a sit at home. The first one was on May 30th, which was in remembrance of the fallen heroes of Biafra. And it was absolutely successful, about 110%, it witnessed about 110% success. So that tells me clearly who is in charge in the Southeast. The governors by now should have resigned. All the governors of the states in the Southeast have lost legitimacy, because you cannot claim to be a governor in a state in which you have no control over your people. Loyalty in the Southeast now is to IPOB. Loyalty in the Southeast now is to Nnamdi Kanu. So what that tells me clearly is that if you organize election in the Southeast today and IPOB decides to raise candidates, they will floor all the major political parties if there is free and fair election. Because the people who will decide the votes are the ones who stayed at home yesterday, are the ones who stayed at home on May 30th. So for me, honestly, it just shows that IPOB cannot be proscribed, contrary to the postulation of the federal government. Because you don't proscribe an organization that has mass following in the way we have seen it in at least two major instances of the sit-at-home that has been declared. Of course, like I said, the pockets of violence that was witnessed yesterday is totally not acceptable. But it's not sufficient to undermine the potency of the cause of the struggle. You know, they're just unfortunate incidents that happen, which I think the leadership of IPOB should sit down and bring to book those who are responsible for such violence. I mean, they should be able to identify them and convince the people that that was not their intention.
Do you really think they have the capacity
effort to try to suppress the people through force or intimidation? So that said, I believe that the Nigerian state should take a lesson from what is going on in the Southeast and sit down with IPOB and discuss the major grievances and see how, you know, they can be incorporated into the mainstream politics. They can be incorporated into the mainstream administration for the region to move forward. Because, I mean, given the experience of what happened to El Zarzaki, I mean, in Zaria, you can't suppress these organizations. Given the experience of what has happened even to Boko Haram itself, or to our People's Congress. You know, so these are ethnic militias that you probably have to find a way to discuss with them in the way that we did with Niger Delta militants, and we're able to get peace in that region. So for me, I do not support the destruction of properties, the lootings, the killings. But generally, I believe that the sit at home was a resounding success, despite these pockets of violence. And it's a lesson to the Nigerian state. In the Southeast today, authority belongs to IPOB. In the Southeast today, loyalty belongs to the organization being led by Nnamdi Kanu. And I think that you have at least send a message to those who claim to be political leaders to turn in their resignation.
Ebun, you've touched on a couple of things. I want us to, zero in on the part of the government. I want you to evaluate. You have just said that IPOB sit-at-home order obviously has shown who's in charge in the southeastern states of the country. But let's look at what this means, the implication of this for governance in the country, starting from the southeastern part of the country, and the implication that this will have on governance in Nigeria generally.
Well, I think that what is clear from all that is going on in the Southeast clearly is that the entity called Federal Republic of Nigeria is a shaky conglomeration that has no foundation to stand at all. Because in the normal federation, people should have allegiance to the central government. But the central government itself has lost legitimacy. It has lost control. Otherwise, you don't have a federation in which a major player in that federation is not agreeing with the principles of the federation. And you just see what's going on in the Southeast. It's also going on in the Southwest. Chief Sunday Adeyemi is leading a formidable force asking for Yoruba nation. And it's resounding with the people. We show that a majority of our people are disenchanted with the system. And that's why those of us who probably will not go the route of the route of Nnamdi Kanu or Igboho are calling for restructuring. Because you can't force people to accept oppression. You can't force people to accept economic policy that are not bettering their lives. You can't force people to accept a federation that is skewed in favor of a particular entity. And so I think that the lesson for the Nigerian state is to say that, look, it's time for us to sit down to agree on the conditions of togetherness. You can't continue to mouth Federal Republic of Nigeria. You can't continue to use a constitution to force people together, to take away their resources, to take away their destiny, to take away their potentials. So I think, going back to the question you have raised, the lesson for me of what happened yesterday in the South is that there's no country called Nigeria as we sit now. The country that is called Nigeria is for the politicians, is for the ruling class. But for the ordinary Nigerian, it's to your tent, O Israel. Everybody owe allegiance to their nationalities. They owe allegiance to their particular areas. And I think we should find a way to sit down, to agree whether we should be together or whether we should separate. We cannot continue to force people to show allegiance to a federation that is not working for the majority of the people.
All right. You've talked about having a conversation or perhaps some form of dialogue with people like Nnamdi Kanu, people like Igboho. Are you with us, Mr. Degboro?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Now, let's talk specifically in terms of Nnamdi Kanu's IPOB. These are a group of people who have been very clear about what they want. Is it possible to have a dialogue with this group of persons?
Yes, it is possible. Look at, let's take for instance, there's an organization called Miyetti Allah. They have executive, they have registered office. Every day, they come out supporting Fulani herdsmen. In spite of the orgy of violence that these herdsmen are imposing on people, raping, killing, denying people of their farmlands, yet there is an organization registered that is maintaining visibility, is not proscribed by government, and every day they come inciting, their members into this kind of violence, and there's nothing happening. And then, look at Sheikh Gumi. It's supported by DSS and security agencies. He's gone into the wilderness to discuss with bandits who are holding and wielding guns and AK-47, and nothing has happened. So if there is dialogue in those instances, and the heavens have not fallen, so why wouldn't you dialogue with Kanu or Igboho or any other person who is calling for secession or self-determination?
My point is, can there be a middle point?
Even after the civil war in Nigeria,
yes,
Nigeria and the Southeast came together to discuss the options for ending the war. So I don't think that you can say any specific group of people do not deserve to be called for a roundtable discussion. When it happened in the Niger Delta, we had to engage the Niger Delta Avengers. You remember the vice president went through all the creeks in Akwa Ibom, in Rivers, in Delta, in Ondo, to meet with the militant leaders, to meet with the community leaders. And it was that trip, that engagement, that gave them a sense of responsibility, a sense of belonging. So I think that it's important to first of all examine how Kanu got to this country. Was his extradition lawful? Did he follow due process?
We'll come to that in a moment.
Was this more good as it is being claimed? And if that is the case, Nigerian government should own up and take responsibility and probably put an end to his trial, and then discuss with him on behalf of the people that are clearly have allegiance to him. I honestly do not agree that it's not possible to discuss with Nnamdi Kanu. Maybe there are excesses, maybe he's an extremist in a way, but given what has happened in the Southeast on May 30th and yesterday, his extremism resonates with the people of the Southeast. His excesses is acceptable to those people. So you must contend with him.
Oh, all right. Yeah, but some persons would also argue, because we had reports coming in from the Southeast yesterday, many people who decided to stay at home stayed at home not because of the fact that they wanted to comply with the order of IPOB, but because of fear that if they come out, they may be harmed one way or the other. But I'm talking about, you've cited the example of, the Niger Delta Avengers and how the government negotiated with them. But there's also a point of difference and distinction here. In that case, the people were not asking for a separate state. They were not asking for a separate country. They were asking for equitable distribution of resources. They were asking for all wealth in their communities to benefit the people in their communities. The creed of IPOB is different from this. They're adamant about their position that, look, we want a separate country. We do not want to be part of Nigeria. And that's why I'm asking, what kind of middle points do you think the Nigerian state can have with the leadership of IPOB when their positions are clearly poles apart?
Well, you know that it is said that those who make peaceful change impossible make violent change inevitable. The agitation for self-determination for the state of Biafra is actuated by marginalization. If Nigeria sits down today and creates an additional state in the Southeast to achieve equilibrium, that agitation will subside. If Nigeria sits down today and decide on rotation and say, well, maybe after the North has ruled, when the presidency goes to the South, it will go to the Southeast, Biafra will more or less disappear. If Nigeria today decides to appoint the chief of army staff, or maybe the position of Senate president, or major positions in the country and given to the Southeast, if Nigeria decides to cite economic interests and major infrastructure in the Southeast, you complete the second Niger bridge, you build institutions in the Southeast, IPOB will lose legitimacy. The reason why IPOB is popular is because of marginalization. The things fueling Biafra is purely neglect. If you address the core issues of neglect, of marginalization, of persecution, of total lack of interest in that region in terms of development, nobody will listen to Kanu. I'm telling you the truth. So I believe that there's no extremism that cannot be handled through discussion. If there's a conscious effort on the part of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to recognize the people of the Southeast as being part of this nation, there will be nobody to follow Kanu. And I do not accept that people stayed at home because of fear. The truth, whether Nigeria wants to accept it or not, is that the agitation for Biafra resonates with at least about 100% of Easterners. The Igbos are fully in support of the agitation for self-determination because of neglect. So I don't think that it is true that they stay at home because of fear. They support the agitation. I have spoken with majority of their leaders, and you can see that when governors say, if you don't come to work, you will lose salary, you will lose your job, and people don't respect such declaration, who is forcing them to stay at home? I don't agree with you, sir. I believe that the agitation for self-determination in the Southeast finds support with the people of the Southeast because they feel that they are not being carried along by the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Let's talk about this issue of being carried along by the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the marginalization and all of that. Let me ask you, let's evaluate government's response to this so far. Now, you have constantly talked about, this is a roundtable discussion is possible here. But the question is, who are those that will be on this roundtable? Obviously, the federal government and IPOB. But are there willing participants for this conversation to take place. The government's response so far, you know, the arrest of Nnamdi Kanu, the extradition of Sunday Igboho, and the way the government has responded so far, does that give you any inkling as to whether the government is interested in having a conversation with this self-determination, determining group across the country? Is government interested? Can this conversation actually hold?
Well, you see that if there is a genuine desire to dialogue with the representatives of the Southeast, we can identify them. They have representatives in the National Assembly, whether you like it or not. I mean, the Senate minority leader, you know, is a popular person. Is somebody who is at least is the face of the Southeast in the National Assembly. You know, they have governors, you know, and then they have community leaders within the Southeast now. At least the socio-cultural group called Ohaneze Ndigbo is accepted as the major cultural group representing that entity. They have some divisions here and there, but over the years, it's been acceptable that Ohaneze Ndigbo represents the interests of the Southeast generally. So if you pick representatives of Ohaneze, you pick the representatives in the National Assembly, you pick amongst the governors, you pick amongst the various business interests in the Southeast, and you have genuine discussion with them towards finding some common grounds for participatory democracy. Surely that will calm down the interest.
Thank you so much for watching that particular video. Feel free to let me know what you think about this video in the comment section below. Like and share this video, and I will see you guys again in my next one. Bye.